Hi, everyone. Again, my name is Stacey. I am from Stacey's Custom Cakes in Jacksonville, Florida. And what we're going to start today is a series on how to do edible machine cutting. I'm going to call this the 101 class because, well, let's start somewhere. So if you have edible printing down or you're working on getting better with it at every project, what comes next? So what you need to do is take your decorating to the next level and enter the realm of machine cutting. Now, if you have ever done a design on a print and you want to cut it out, you've had to do it with a craft knife. And the first time I did a cake like that, it was a Jurassic World theme, and it was a really awesome looking cake, but it took me like 2 hours to cut everything out because I had dinosaurs everywhere and all kinds of things going on. And I thought to myself, there had to be a better way. And then that's whenever I discovered edible cutting. So what is edible cutting? Edible cutting is a system that Icing Images offers. It uses the Cricut Explorer system, so it's very user-friendly, very entry-level. Just open it up, start working with it, and you get amazing results right out the gate. So what we're going to do is combine that with our edible printing, and we're going to make edible stickers, for lack of anything better to call it. So first thing we want to do is talk real quick about what makes a good edible image. We talked about this a little bit in my previous series on printing, but let's go back and hit the highlights just a little bit more. So the first thing that I cannot stress enough is you want to have a high resolution or a high quality image. So what we have on screen right now is an example of the difference between a high quality and a low quality, or high resolution and low resolution. So in particular, the one on the left, take a look at how crunchy the text looks. That's because it's a low resolution image. A low resolution image is great because it's a tiny file, but with a tiny file comes less quality. If you look at the image on the right, everything is crisp, everything is clean. Anything you cut from it, anything you print from it is going to have that crispness and that cleanness to it as well. So that's why we want to get a high quality image as best as possible. So another thing we want to talk about real quick is transparency. If you look behind that image, you can see that graph kind of checkerboard looking area. That's indicating that those images have a transparent area. That we'll put a pin in it for right now, but we'll come back to that later when we're in Cricut Design Space setting up the images we're going to cut tonight. Well, what you need to know is that a transparent area is just like printing with white ink. And if you've ever noticed, you don't have a white ink cartridge from Icing Images, and that's because white is just the material that's underneath. So you don't have to worry about printing anything. You don't have to worry about any of these other details. Just know that if it's a transparent area, it's just like printing white, and you'll see whatever's underneath it directly on through. So what about graphic art skills? Do I need them? Absolutely not. That's the reason why we talked about quality images right out of the gate, because if you have a quality image, that eliminates most of the need to do any kind of graphic design. And this comes in very handy whenever you're working with clients that want to have logos on their products, whether it's a cookie or a cupcake topper or a face cake, anything like that. High quality image equals high quality print. So one of the things that I've seen people trip up a lot with is using a word processing program like Microsoft Word, or using a presenting program like PowerPoint. Those are designed to make really nice looking images on screen, but not so much a nice looking image on a printed material. So avoid using Word, avoid using Pages, avoid using Google Docs, avoid PowerPoint, anything like that. You want to stick with a graphic editing program. Now, Icing Images on their website has iPrint, which works really, really well for creating prints that are going to be high quality. And if you're using Cricut Design Space, because you're going to cut it, you can print from Cricut Design Space and completely sidestep all the debate on what program is best to do your printing from. Do your printing from Cricut? Do your cutting from Cricut? And it closes the gap and solves all the problems. So a lot of the material I'm covering might be kind of coming at you fast, but don't worry. At the end, we'll share a link that you can go and download a cheat sheet, just like I provide for all my other live sessions with Icing Images. And it will talk in detail about some of these points that we're missing, but we'll also come back and talk about these points more in the future as well. So just get your head wrapped around the idea and just get ready to take the information in, and we'll come back and we'll pick up on those points and dive a little bit deeper as we go. If you happen to use a program and you want to do a bespoke custom design, because that's something you can do and you feel fine doing it, one of the things that you want to look at in that download is going to be an area that talks about what the maximum cut size is for a print and cut image. Because if you make it too big, the Cricut won't be able to cut it out correctly. So let's jump right into it and go into Cricut Design Space and actually make something. So what we're going to do is show my desktop view and just walk along with me as we do the whole process. All right, here we go. So I am working on a Mac right now, but everything I'm showing you is identical to Windows. The only difference will be the way you print is a little bit different, but if you can print with your Windows PC, you'll be able to print with Cricut Design Space just as easy. It's super, super simple. So the first thing we want to do once you open Cricut Design Space is you're going to be welcomed to the home screen. And if you're wondering where you are in the program, you can always look at the top left-hand corner and that will tell you where you are. So what we're going to do is start a new project. So we click on New, and it will load up a new project in theory. Hey, there we go. That's right. But that's one of the nice things about these apps is that they work the same. In fact, Cricut Design Space is also available for iPhone and iPad, and many customers from Icing Images have had great results not using a PC or a Mac at all and just doing all of their work on a phone. And one of the things that's really cool about that is it will still communicate with your Cricut Explorer. So you can still cut. You don't need a computer for any of this. You can do it from your phone or from my iPad very, very easily. So where are we now? Well, remember what I said a second ago. Look in the upper left-hand corner. We're in the canvas. So the canvas is your workspace. One of the things that's really cool about the canvas is it goes forever. So you're not restricted to any kind of size here. So if you want to lay out a bunch of different things and you're just basically spitballing an idea together, you can lay them all out here, and the software will handle how to print and how to cut later. So don't worry about how you arrange things. So the first thing we're going to do is take a image from Cricut. So I'm going to come over here to Images, and I'm going to browse all images. And you can see here that they have tons and tons and tons of images here to use. And if you want to filter out, you can go to Operation Type and set Print Then Cut. And here are literally thousands of images, just shy of 15,000 images that are on here right now that you can grab and print and cut and just right from the jump get going. So, mhm, mhm. Absolutely. Yep. So what I did was I went through and I picked a couple of images that I wanted to use tonight. So I'm going to go up here to my stuff, and I'm going to go to my bookmarked images. And I picked two things because we're getting close to spooky season. So what I'm going to do is just click Add to Canvas. And you see down here that printer icon. That means that these are ready for print and cut. So now I need to go back, and that will take me, oops. I clicked back one time too many. Okay. All right. So let me back up a little bit then.
So you're not hearing Debbie for some reason. This is what she said. Okay. And then we'll work on it in the meantime.
Yep. Well, it's a good thing I can still hear you. All right. So what Debbie was saying is that Cricut has a free version and a paid version. The paid version is called Cricut Access, and it's a subscription system. So if you're browsing inside Cricut and you see this stylized letter A on a green flag, that means that this is something that you get with Cricut Access. Now, in this particular case, if I did not have Cricut Access, I could purchase that image for 99 cents, but it doesn't take very long to rack up enough to do the subscription. So if you find yourself purchasing a lot of images through Cricut Design Space, just upgrade to the Cricut Access and you'll have access to all those items.
All right. Can you hear me now? I know you can, Stacey.
Yeah.
Lori tweaked something. Let's see if they can hear me. So, and whenever you use this program, you all have to sign up. It's just whether or not you pay for it or not. Mm-hmm. And it's just the images that you pay for.
Yes.
And they can hear me now. All right. Cool. Now I'll be quiet.
So one of the cool things about signing up for a Cricut account, and I know everyone wants you to sign up for an account, but one of the things that's cool about it is all of the projects you create are stored in the cloud. So if I sit down at another computer somewhere else and I log into my account, everything I've created, I will be able to access on that computer as well. So I'm going to go back to my canvas, and when it loads, you can see that I have two images here now. So if you look up here, it says it's 5 by 5. That is huge. Now, if you're doing a huge cookie, that's great. I'm not doing a huge cookie, so I'm going to make that a little bit smaller. And I'm going to make that 3. And the way I do that is I come up here to where it says size. I type in the size that I want, hit enter, and it resizes it. I can also scale it up and down using this grip on the corner. So for my spooky bat wing, we're also going to make that a little bit smaller. And when you highlight an image, look up here at the operation. There's a couple of options here like cutting, drawing, print and cut, and guide. Print and cut is what we're looking for. What this does is it tells Cricut that you want to print the image out and then cut it. I know that's a complicated concept to get your head wrapped around, but it's going to print it and then it will cut it. Sorry, poor humor. So I have these two images here, and the nice thing is I don't have to do anything else with them. Because they came from Cricut Design Space, they're already preset. So I don't have to edit. I don't have to do anything else. If I wanted to make it different, I could tap on text and put in spooky. And I could overlay that onto the image. We'll talk about doing image overlays in another session, but that's just to give you an idea of how free you are to do what you want with this. Now, one of the really important things that I want to talk about is doing an uploaded image. So this is great whenever you have a client who wants to have their logo on something. And you can see that I have a bunch of logos and other projects that I've done loaded here already. But what I want to do is show you how to upload an image. You can see right here what kind of file types will work. JPEG and PNG are the two that you will have the most luck with, as long as you download a high quality image. And you can also use SVG. That is a vector style graphic, and we'll talk more about the details on that later. But JPEG, PNG, and SVG are the three that I recommend people to start out with. The other ones, they work, but you can have some trouble with them. So I'm going to go to Upload Image, and I can drag and drop or browse. So I have a logo here already, so I'm just going to drag it in. And one of the best parts about Cricut that really impressed me when I started using it was exactly how logical everything is laid out. So it's just like a book, top to bottom, left to right. So we have an image preview over here. If we don't like it, we can replace it. It's going to tell you what kind of image type is it. Simple, moderate, complex, complex. For most images, I just default to complex. And what you're doing is you're telling Cricut what you want it to do with it. For print then cut operations, complex works really, really well because it will capture all the fine detail and it won't try to muddle or mute any of the colors in it. So we go to complex and hit continue. And now what we're going to do is take a look at the background. So you see this white area back here? This is the area that is the background. So on this particular image, if I open a preview of it, you can see it's white in the background. There's no checkered background. You don't see anything through it. So if we were to do a print and cut on it just as it is right now, it would cut out a square instead of this squiggly shape that's around it. So to get rid of the background, you go to Manual and you hit Select, and you select the background, and it removes it. And what it's basically doing is it's looking at the color that you selected, and it will follow it around the outside to find where that color touches, and it will say, oh, that's a different color than it is here, so this must be the background. And it cuts it out, and it does a really fantastic job at it. And if you want to double check that you have it correct, Preview Cut Image. Anything in the gray is what will be cut. Anything back here will not be cut. So we apply and continue. And it's going to ask you what you want to do. You remember I said about the operation earlier? We can set it up just to be cut if we just want that shape, but we want to do print then cut. So we select print then cut. You can give it a name, add it to a collection, and then hit upload. In a couple seconds, you'll see it pop up in the list here. So I select it, and you can see that it's selected down here. So if I wanted to select multiple images at once, I could just stack them up down here and then hit add to canvas. So I want to park on this for just a second. If I highlight it, you can see what size it is. One thing that Cricut does is by default, when it imports an image, it will automatically size it to the largest it can be without sacrificing quality. So if you think back to that image that I showed you before, high quality or high resolution versus low quality, low resolution, this, even though it's a high quality image, could print crunchy or kind of a pixelated look if you explode it or stretch it or scale it up too much. So the rule of thumb that I always follow is whatever size it comes in as is the maximum size you want to print at. So what I actually want to do is stick it on a 3-inch cookie. So I set it to 3 inches, and there it is, just like that. So let's go ahead and do one more image so you get a chance to see that again. So I go to Upload, Upload Image, and I'm going to drag in a pink ribbon, and I'm going to select Complex. Even though it's just a single color, I'm still going to do Complex to make sure that it captures all the finer details of the swoops and the loops around in this ribbon. Hit Continue, and I'm going to remove the background. Boop. just like that.
Hey, Stacey.
Yeah.
You can also, this is new on there, but they have the remove background where it'll automatically do it for you right above it.
They do. So the automatic,
well, but
yeah, the automatic background remover is quite magical. However, the downside is it only works if you have a Cricut Access subscription.
Yeah.
So in another session where we talk about doing face cakes and whatnot, I'm going to take a photo that has a wild background with like they're standing in front of a building. It's a couple that are hugging for an engagement photo. And you will be shocked at how good of a job it does at removing that background. So coming back to this, what do you notice about this? This
the background's still there.
The background is still there. So even though the background remover took away the background, it left it in here. So if we were to cut it, it would be one solid piece. Now, this could be really good depending on the kind of project you're doing or the type of icing you're going to put this image on top of. But what we want to do is, again, do a background removal right there. So now if I preview it, you can see that it's going to cut out the centerpiece as well. So if I'm setting this on top of a cake that has a different background color or a design to it, I'd be able to see through this. And I, most importantly, don't have to manually cut it out with my craft knife. This is the piece that would have saved my life with that Jurassic World cake several years ago. So I'm going to hit apply and continue. Just like before, print then cut, hit upload, select it, add to canvas. And just like before, it imports at the biggest size possible, but I don't want it to be that big. I want it to be 3 inches. Just like that. Now, here's one of the things that makes Cricut stand out that I thought was really neat. I'm going to take all this stuff and just drop it on top of itself. Now, any normal person would look at that and go, well, that's going to make a mess. Watch what happens when I go to print it and then cut it. I'm going to hit make it. Because that's what I'm going to.
This is cool.
Here's the magic. Boom. It took a look at all of the things that I was doing and it laid it out on a virtual piece of paper. And the virtual piece of paper is sitting on top of a virtual cutting mat. Now, what in the world am I talking about? This piece in the back is a cutting mat. And wouldn't you know it, I have one here to show you. So Cricut has 3 different types of cutting mats. And the way they're identified is by the grip or how tacky it is. So if I zoom this in here, you can see that the blue one is a light grip. Now, it's exactly what it says on the tin. Of the 3 mats, this one has the lightest amount of tackiness to it. So it's going to hold whatever you put on it, but it's not going to like really hold on to it like you super glued it down. The other 2 mats, the green one and the purple one, have more and more tackiness to it. And for some projects, you want that type of tackiness. The method I'm going to show you tonight, I don't use the cutting mat at all. But we'll come back to that in just a second. I know, because I never do anything the way it says you're supposed to.
And that's why you're our geek.
So what we have here is the Icing Images Food Safe Cutting Mat. I'll talk about this a little bit later whenever I'm doing something else so you don't have to just watch me do it. But with the Food Safe mat, you can cut fondant with it. You can cut any of the paper products or any of the other edible products that Icing Images carries. And what we're going to do is take our piece of paper and stick it on this mat and then let the machine cut it. So one thing I want to do before I actually make it, and this is just a better safe than sorry, I'm going to select all this stuff up here and then double check one last time that it says print then cut. Because just for an example, let's say I take this and I turn it to a cut instead. When I go to make it, you're going to see a print then cut operation and the basic cut operation. So I've confused the program a little bit by doing that. But that's why I always double check it before I go to that screen. So if I select everything, it says print then cut. And I can select it here in the canvas. I can select it over here in the group dialog. But I'm good to go, so I'm going to hit make it. So if for whatever reason I want to move these images around, I can. But Cricut did all the hard work for me and laid it out. So that is gray. I don't like that. There we go. That's why I love the preview on Cricut, because it's a great way to double check everything. So over here on material size, again, in the download that I provided, you'll be able to see all the different material sizes that Icing Images carries. But for what I'm doing, I'm going to print on a premium icing sheet. So I want it set to letter, which is 8.5 by 11. Now, I don't need to mirror it, and I only need one copy. If I wanted to make multiple copies, say I'm doing a order of cupcakes or an order of cookies, I can make multiple prints to get it done. So I'm going to hit continue.
Hey, Stacey.
Yes.
I noticed a lot of white space around that. Could you add more in there if you want to?
Absolutely.
All right.
So let's go ahead and do that just for fun. So let me teach you a secret for Cricut. If I select multiple things and then hit Control or Command D, it will make a duplicate. Now when I go to make it, it's going to stick them all in here. But look at this. I now have a lone rogue warrior over here. I've decided I don't want to do this one, so I'm going to hit Hide Selected. Come back here, and apparently Cricut's having a moment because that page should have disappeared. So let me just go back here and manually remove it.
What I love about that too is if I want to put a bazillion of them on there, but I don't know how many will fit, I just put a ton on there and see what fits. And if it doesn't fit, I take some away.
Yep. And that's amazing. So I have everything set up the way I wanted to. And you notice these little black marks right here? These are the reference lines for when the machine cuts. So we'll talk about that in just a few seconds. But if for whatever reason you need to move stuff around, in other words, you have a little scrap left over from a sheet. And like, here's an example of one I did earlier. If I wanted to put more down here, I can just manually move these images to the bottom and then recycle a sheet of paper, essentially.
Now, hold on, I'm going to interrupt, sorry, because Paula brought up something that's going to be more of an advanced thing. I don't know that you're going to do it this time, but you may next time.
Okay.
Paula actually will position all her images herself. I do this as well. So that when you're looking at those breast cancer awareness ribbons, for example, you can flip one upside down and fit more. But that's more advanced. And I know I was thinking the same thing you were, Paula. I'm sure other people are as well. But you'll cover that later, I'm sure.
Sure thing. So just to show what Paula was talking about for anyone who didn't understand it, there's a concept in layout called nesting. And if you think of nesting, it's like a nest. You take different sized objects and you arrange them in such a way that they nest together, kind of like nesting bowls in your kitchen or nesting coffee tables, things like that. So I squeeze that one in over there, and I might be able to fit another one in just like that. But with Cricut, it will let you do all of that as you see fit.
That's new. It allows you to do it right there.
Yeah. That's
new. I didn't know that.
Well, we learn something new every day.
Yep.
All right. So now we're going to print it. So let's say that we had already printed multiple copies of it and we're just going to continually cut it. I could come over here and tell the machine that I already that I already printed it, but that's not the case. So I'm going to send it to printer. So I tap on send to printer. I select the printer I want it to go to. And then let's take a second and look at this guy right here. So Lori, if you could put up that third image where it talks about bleed. What is bleed? Bleed is a graphic term that means an area that is wider than your artwork that the blade on the machine will cut through the middle of. Let's see. I don't see that image coming up yet.
Lori, the other one. All right, she's watching. I can see her. Hold on, she's moving it. She's working on it.
Yeah, this is my fault. I'm doing this out of order a little bit.
That could be why. It's coming. I can see it coming.
Blame the guy. Just blame the guy.
Yeah, the geek.
There it is. All right. So if you look on the left side and you look on the right side, play a game of what is different. And if you look on the right side, you'll notice, particularly around the bakery logo and the breast cancer awareness ribbon, there's that kind of almost metallic looking shadow going around it. That is the bleed. So what Cricut does is it looks at the design and it says, okay, this is where I plan on cutting. So I'm going to take the color around the edge and thicken it up a little bit. So when it cuts, it will cut through that color. And what bleed does is it gives you the ability to have a borderless cut job. So when we cut this, I always cut without bleed in Cricut unless I specifically set it up to be a bleed type of job. And we'll talk about that in a more advanced session. But typically, I prefer to add my bleeds manually, and then I don't have to worry about what color Cricut chooses. So
yeah, that's very advanced. I don't even do that. I use the bleed. Let it do it for me.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, bleed is not quite as magical as the automatic background remover, but it's still pretty awesome. So let's go back to the desktop view. Almost.
One more. There you go.
There we go. All right. So I am going to turn off bleed because I want you to see what it looks like without the bleed cut. And because I'm on a Mac, I'm going to use System Dialog.
If you're and you want to use it for PC too, by the way. And so I'm going to see if you talk about it. Let me see why I do it in PC.
So this is a bug in Cricut. That's why things are jumping around. So don't worry about this part. But what I'm going to do is I have a job preset already, but I'm going to show you what I changed on here. Under Media, I have it set up to feed from the rear tray on matte photo paper, and always, always, always use normal quality. So everything's set.
Now, if you're on a PC, the other thing you want to make sure of, hi Tina, is that you do not have borderless selected.
Correct.
Okay. Because if you do, it's going to change the size of what the Cricut is expecting it to print because the printer at that point is making a change. So always make sure your borderless is off.
Yep. And if you look here at this preview, what the borderless does is it moves these black lines for registration, and it will push them off to the side in an area that the Cricut is not expecting. So that's a good thing. Good thing you mentioned it because I had forgot about that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit print.
And so what that kind of means is when it goes to print and then cut, it's printing in a different location than the cutter's going to look for it. And you'll see when he gets there how the cutter looks for it once it's printed.
All right. So while the printer is doing its thing, I'm going to give you a quick tour of the Cricut. So can we go back to the camera view, please? There we go. So here's what the Cricut looks like. It folds up in a really compact way. And I always recommend leave it closed when you're not using it because that will help keep dust out of it. If you want to channel that 1980s energy that I did in the previous session, you can get a dust cover for it too. But whenever you're ready to use it, make sure it's plugged in. And you notice that there's no cables coming from the Cricut to my computer. And that's because everything is done via Bluetooth. which means you can also do it on your phone. You can also do it on your iPad. So what I'm going to do is hit the open button, and it will open up the lid, and it will open up the tray on the bottom. So the tray on the bottom has a place that you can store tools, has a place that you can store extra blades. And as a preview, this black one, we're going to talk about that next month. And then what you have here are 2 carriages. So just like on your edible printer, there's the carriage that the print head rides in. These are the carriages that the knife blades ride in. So if I open this up and take it out, what I have here is called a cartridge. And this cartridge, now this is a little bit hard to show on camera. Yeah, that's not working either.
No, you just hold it right up against the, there you go.
There we go. So you can see that there's a very sharp knife blade inside there. Don't touch it, it will cut you. That's what it's designed to do. And if you use your cutter to make non-food products like cardstock or glitter card style cake toppers, what I recommend is to get a second cartridge and then mark one of them either with nail polish or put a sticker around the top part here that doesn't interfere with the machine. Something that lets you know that you have one for edible products and one for inedible products.
I'm going to stop you for a second right there because something I want to mention, because you guys know I'm really big on food safety.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different Cricuts that are available. We settled on not settled, but we chose the Explorer Air 2 because of the price point. It's lower in price and it doesn't do much more. It does what it needs to do for printing edibles. So some people choose to use their Cricut with non-food safe items, and so you got to be real careful. If you're cutting just paper or vinyl, you can use it both, because you can actually get in there. If you can see, everything can be cleaned very easily in there, and you can swap off the blades as well. So if you have a more advanced Cricut and you're cutting wood or plexiglass or whatever, etching, whatever, no, do not use that for edibles.
No.
Keep it just for that and have one for each. A lot of people, and I kind of recommend it, have one for edibles, one for not edibles, so things just don't get mixed up.
Yep.
So that's like really important. And when he was talking about marking, just take a little dab of nail polish and put it on all your edible items so that you know if it has that nail polish dot, then that's your food safe products. One thing you're missing on here too is this conversation about what they do with their Cricut and where they store things in that front that you were talking about. So in the one underneath the golden label, right there, they like to hide money and M&Ms in there based on everybody in Sour Patch Kids. So that's what's going on in the comments right now. The question is, are you going to go to Paula's house because she hides money, or Kathy Moore's who's M&Ms? You know, so just saying.
Oh, this sounds like one of those personality tests. Do you want $10 today or $15 in 2 days? Decisions.
I want the hamburger.
Oh, I had a hamburger for lunch today.
Popeyes, you know, a Popeye.
Yeah.
Popeye's favorite man.
Oh, you're making me hungry. I skipped dinner earlier. So, all right, let's get back to the machine. So we talked about the blade that's inside here. So one thing you will notice when working with icing sheets is sometimes a little fleck, especially if it's a cut that has a lot of details, might get caught up in here. And whenever we talk about doing fondant, hint, hint, that's in the future. When we talk about using fondant, you want to keep an eye on that. The easiest way I have found to clean this so far is the button on the back. When you push it, it pushes the blade out. So what I do is, like I've talked in my other classes, as part of my mise en place, I always have one dry kitchen towel and one damp kitchen towel. I'll take the damp one and just wipe up the side, take the dry one, wipe up the side, and then just give it a second look to make sure that there's no crusties or anything else stuck in there. Once you're done, let go of the button, and then you slide it into the carrier, latch it shut, and that's all you have to do. So what I'm going to do is move this over to the side for a second, and we'll talk about the mats. So like everything in the cake decorating world, if you ask 3 decorators, you'll get 4 answers on what the best way to do something is. A lot of people, for a premium icing sheet, because it has this acetate carrier, will use a light grip mat or one of the other mats. I personally don't do that. I used to do it that way, and I just ended up not liking the way that that process worked. So the way I do it is I use the Icing Images Food Safe mat. Now, the Food Safe mat will work with any Icing Images material that you can print on, and you can do all sorts of wonderful things with it. And what I use are little pieces of blue painter's tape. Now, down here on the edge, I don't want it to get caught up in the edible paper here. So I just take a craft knife and real quick, I run it down the edge, peel it off, just like that. And I save this. I save this. And the reason I save it, Heather talked about last week on her live, is you can make all kinds of neat stuff. You can use the Nicholas Lodge method to make a moldable icing sheet clay. Heather last week did a really awesome substitute for royal icing with that. So now what I do is I'm going to take my image and I'm going to move it to the corner. Now, I'm not going to be super picky on whether or not it's lined up perfectly, because you remember what we talked about before. These registration marks here in the corner, the machine will scan it to locate those. Now, if you put it in there like that, it's not going to work. But you don't have to have it perfectly perfect. Just
wait, I'm confused.
Enough.
I'm confused. Are you putting it on sidewards? Because the top of the mat is where the logo is, right?
Yeah, right here.
Wouldn't that be? I know we're seeing it in reverse too, but maybe that's what's wrong with my eyeballs and I'm not getting it. Because it's supposed to be up in the upper left-hand corner, correct? Is that what it is? It's just reverse for us?
Yes.
Okay, so it's reverse. Yep. Thank you. All right, so it's in the upper left-hand corner, guys, not the upper right-hand corner. Okay.
Oh, did I say right?
No. It's the way it's viewing because it's flipped on our screen.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm glad you clarified that. So, easy way to do it. Look for the eye in icing, and that's the side you want it to be on. So I have it taped down now. None of the tape is touching my icing sheet, so I don't have to stress about that. Now I'm going to bring the machine back over. And Lori, I hate to do this to you, but can you put us back on my desktop again? Thank you. All right. So what it's doing right now is it's using Bluetooth to communicate with the Cricut. And it thinks about it for a second. And we've already printed, but if for whatever reason you have to go back and print, you can just tap it and then tap ahead once you're ready. So in this case, I have a preset already for an Icing Images premium icing sheet. And one of the things you get in your kit from Icing Images is a cheat sheet that has all the material settings, so you don't have to experiment to figure it out on your own. And then I'm just going to use default pressure for everything else. And then 1, 2, 3 is the next step. It's going to say load the tools and material. So there were 2 clamps on the carriage that we looked at earlier. No tool is required in clamp A. The fine point blade, or the silver one, or the default one, is what you put in there. And then it's telling us to go ahead and load the mat. So can we switch back to the camera again? All right. So look at the display over here. You see how it's flashing this double arrow? What this is saying is that the machine is in sync with the computer. or the phone or the iPad, and it's ready for you to load it. So the first button is load. So we're going to take the mat and we're going to slide the mat in. All right. So before I do anything else, see these two white tabs right here? You want the mat to go underneath those tabs. And what this does is it helps prevent the mat from going all cattywampus as the machine loads it. So I just push it in until it meets the rubber rollers. Then I hit the load button. It does that. And now it's ready to go. So if you were looking at my desktop, you would see that it highlighted to step number 4 that says press go. It's pretty self-explanatory. Go is what the Cricut logo button is. So what it's going to do when I hit cut, it's going to take the mat, move it in, make some noise, and now watch. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a light on the underside of the carriage, and what it's doing is it's looking for those black registration marks to figure out where on the mat your print job, your print then cut job is. So it does this for about 30 seconds or so, and then it will take off. I don't recommend sitting behind it because you keep getting poked in the belly with it. So now that it knows where it is up and down, it's locating where it is left and right. And now it's ready to cut. And this part, even after doing this for years, it's still almost magical. And I kind of get lost in staring at it. But what it's doing is it's taking that fine point blade and it's moving it up and down on the paper where it needs to be in order to cut it. And as it goes back and forth, forwards and backwards, it's dragging that blade through the premium icing sheet to cut it.
Now, one thing, like, imagine if these were all 1 1/4 inch shaped anything, and you would be sitting there all night long if you didn't have this machine, cutting all of them out by hand.
By hand.
And my friend, what do you get paid to do? Do you get paid to cut things out by hand, or do you get paid to decorate?
I am a sole proprietorship, so I get paid to do both. Okay. Unfortunately, cutting it out by hand means my dollar per hour goes down with it.
Yes.
So
bingo.
You can see how quickly it did that. And now I want to talk about something that I know frustrates a lot of people. Pre-cut sheets. Icing Images does sell pre-cut sheets in certain sizes. I think it's a 2-inch, a 2.5, and a 3-inch circle.
We got more besides that, but yes. I
Okay.
hate them.
Yeah. They're great for people that don't have these machines. Unfortunately, it's kind of like hitting a moving target because anything goes wrong with the print whatsoever and it misses and you end up wasting an entire sheet. Or like in the Icing Images email that went out earlier today, in the case of Super Joe, he had to keep, I don't know, something like half a dozen different sizes. And because they only come in packs of 24, you run the risk of them aging out or expiring before you get a chance to use them. In this case, you don't have to worry about that. You cut them as you go. The only premium icing sheet I stock in my studio is just the plain one. That way, anytime I need it, I have it. I have different templates set up on my computer for different types of cupcake toppers, different kinds of other stand-up toppers that I do. Hint, hint, we'll talk about that again soon. And I just lay it out as I need it to do what I need. So just like before, we're going to go back and look at the flashing button. The flashing button says it's time to unload. So we hit unload. it kicks it
I'm
out.
going to interrupt right here for a second.
Go for it.
So my friend Stacey, do you buy them? So you keep the 8.5 by 11. There's also an A4 people opt for. It's just a preference.
Mm-hmm.
So you keep, that's the only size you're carrying. So the other sizes aren't sitting on the shelf. You mentioned that.
That is correct.
So when you purchase them, do you purchase them one pack at a time and pay shipping on one pack at a time?
Only when I was young and foolish. Now that
Okay.
I'm old and wise,
You pay bulk.
one, I buy bulk, and two, I keep an eye out because on occasion they run sales.
Yes. So so we sell 4 packs and 10 packs, and the shelf life on these sheets are about 2 years. They last a long time. So the price comes down quite a bit on those 10 packs and the 4 packs over the price of just 1 pack of icing sheets. So you're not wasting sheets sitting on the shelf just collecting dust, and you're able to buy the one sheet that will allow you to do everything in bulk, saving money. All right, and then Paula, you asked about the dial, what the setting was on. All the settings are on that food safe mat that he's using, and they're all kind of approximate. It's going to vary based on the humidity or dryness in your area.
Yes.
Okay, all you now.
In my situation, because I'm in Florida, and prior to Florida, I was in New Orleans, where the average temperature is, I don't care, it's humid. I had to go through and customize my settings to cut a little bit deeper with a little bit more pressure to get the result that I wanted. So one of the reasons I like using the blue painter's tape is I'm done. All I had to do is peel off 4 pieces of tape and the image came right out. So there's 2 ways you can go about weeding. And weeding is removing the material you don't want from the material you do want. So the 2 ways you can do it, you can just peel up the image you want as you need it. And if you go back to the previous live, the very first one where I talk about how to apply an edible glue to the back of it, whether you're using little honeys or you're using piping gel, whatnot, peel it off, paint it on, slap it on your cookie, your cake, whatever else you want to do. If I'm doing a large order, say a few dozen cupcakes, what I will do is mass weed the entire project so it's ready. So what I'll do is I'll take my craft knife and I'll cut in some weed lines. So I'm just going to come through here, miss those, just like that. And maybe do the same here. And I'm not going to make you watch me do this all night, so I'm just going to do it real quick. But you can see I'm not being super precise. All I'm doing is just putting in some pre-cut lines. So when I come along, I can peel out the weeds or the negative space and just leave behind what I want. And
Why don't you just peel the whole thing off and not use those weed lines?
So in a lot of the designs I do, I have some fairly intricate cuts. So if I just grab it and tear the whole thing off at once, I tend to break my images. So that's why I do this particular method. Nothing here is super complicated, so I could probably just peel the entire sheet at once and get away with it. But in my personal workflow, this is what I found that works best for me. But there's absolutely nothing stopping you from doing the entire sheet all at once. So I want to talk real quick about why I do this mass weeding instead of just picking them out one by one. When you first pull this off the acetate backing, you'll notice that it doesn't quite feel tacky, but it doesn't not feel tacky. And what I have learned is that if I peel it off, set it off to the side, and then come back to it, it won't stick as well, or it might develop an air bubble underneath it. So the method that I experimented with and found that I had the most luck with is I don't touch the image until I'm ready to apply it. So now I peel it off, flip it over, paint on my edible glue, and then put it directly on the product that I'm going to use it on. I don't delay. I don't wait a second. It goes from on the acetate backing, flip it, paint it, put it on the product, and then adjust whatever needs to be adjusted, chase out any air bubbles that need to be chased out, and then I leave it alone. And that's, through my experience, the best luck I have had with applying an icing image is by doing that method. So that is pretty much the skinny on how to do print then cut. You'll notice that the cuts are incredibly detailed and very sharp.
I forgot, did you use a bleed on that or not?
This is no bleed. And
That's
you
really
see,
good.
It still came out really, really nice. And that was one of the reasons I did not use the bleed on this, is I wanted you to see how nice that detail was. Now, this was the image, the generic bakery logo that we imported and used the background remover. If you look at this pumpkin that we took from Cricut Design Space, there's a little bit of a white border to it. That white border is why some people will do their designs with a bleed. Now, other folks like
Well,
that
I think
look.
was intentional. I think that was intentional because look how even it is. They did that on purpose.
Yeah. And it gives it this kind of cartoon effect. If you remember a few years ago, all the rage was a cartoon look. It was a few months ago. And this is a way to achieve that same look without having to do a bunch of manual piping all around the edge. You can just have that built into the design that you're using. So are there any questions that I missed as far as like print then cut goes?
I think I was hitting most of them while we were going through. You hit the questions that I had in my head, which was good.
Perfect.
Yeah, I'm very big on that.
Cool.
What was I going to say? Now, the sticky mats, you don't like sticky mats. Some people like them, some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 different types of sticky mats. I say that 3 times. And they, sorry, I'm looking at, okay. Lori, look at the coupon code. Something's wrong with the expiration date, and I didn't even catch it, even when I said it to you. Sorry, I'm reading comments. So you got the light blue, which is not that tacky. You got the green, which is the medium tacky, and the purple, which is god awful sticky. And everyone uses them. Everyone has their preference, just like you said before. The food safe mat is an exclusive Icing Images mat with no tack on it whatsoever. And the instructions are on each side as far as the settings. So Paula, there's not a food safe mat setting per se, but the settings are listed on the mat. So there's a cheat sheet on both sides of that food safe mat, which gives you settings for icing sheets, wafer paper, etc. And so that answers that question. So if you put your image on a sticky mat, the stickier it is, when you start to peel it off, a lot of times they'll pop out just because it releases the images from the backing, just so you're aware of that. Okay. I just kind of wanted to throw that in there, but the non-sticky mat is just a safe thing. Yeah, that's the blue mat. That's not as sticky.
Yeah.
But you have to have a barrier between your food and the mat if you use that. You cannot put wafer paper or smart sheets directly on it because the tacky part is not food safe.
Right.
Okay?
Also, on materials that don't have a backing or a carrier on it, they will tend to stick, even to the light grip mat, they will stick so much that whenever you try to peel it off, it will just tear. Yeah. And if you ever get an entire sheet of wafer paper stuck to this, just chuck it and buy another one, because you will be there forever trying to pick that off.
Okay, Kathy Moore, I'm responding to her. She's had her mat for almost 2 years. Are the settings on mine the same as the ones now? Kathy, if your settings are working, don't change anything.
Absolutely.